Hey friends, this time we're looking at another film from the 1990s, what I feel is the last truly great era for Hollywood movies. That's right, we're talking about Dick Tracy from 1990. Chester Gould's comic creation, Dick Tracy, debuted in 1931, taking inspiration from the gangsters who terrorized America during Prohibition and the gangbusters who brought them to justice. In his comic, Gould's stalwart detective always won against crime and crime lords, and the comic strip was immensely popular. In fact, the 1990 picture was not the first outing Dick Tracy had in the movies. The character appeared in several movie serials and standalone movies, mostly in the 1940s. The 1990 film was a pet project Warren Beatty had been planning for years, and finally got the green light to bring Dick Tracy back to the silver screen. What's it all about? Well, our story goes like this. Big Boy Caprice is a gangster who wants to take over and form a crime syndicate with himself as the boss, of course. But he has one stumbling block, the honest cop who can't be bought, a gangbuster extraordinaire, Dick Tracy, who is intent on cleaning up the city. As Caprice moves to eliminate his competition and consolidate his gang of hoodlums and his power, he also has to deal with Tracy. Along the way, we see Tracy unable to commit to his longtime girlfriend because crime has to be stopped. And he encounters a tough orphan kid, known only as the Kid, that he takes under his wing and reforms. Then there's Breathless Mahoney, the gangster's moll trying to tempt Tracy. And there's a mysterious criminal playing both ends against the middle. This crook is known simply as the Blank and has no face. There's a who's who of Hollywood in this movie. Warren Beatty stars as Tracy and also directed the movie. The late Glenne Headly plays Tracy's girlfriend, Tess Trueheart. Charles Durning plays the police chief and looks the part from the comic strip. Dick Van Dyke appears in a somewhat serious role as a corrupt district attorney. As Big Boy Caprice, Al Pacino steals the picture, although his shtick does wear a bit thin eventually. And the downhearted frail, the gangster's moll, Breathless Mahoney, is played by none other than the material girl herself, Madonna. She macks on Tracy, sings a few torch songs, and even sports a see-through top in one scene. Yeah. William Forsythe, James Keane, R.G. Armstrong, Catherine O'Hara, James Caan, Ian Wolfe in his last film role, he's here, Frank Campanella, Henry Silva, Estelle Parsons, Kurt Russell's dad, Bing Russell. The list just goes on and on. Beatty insisted that in lighting, set painting, and wardrobe, they only use the bright primary colors you see in newspaper funnies, and the cinematographer kept his shots static whenever possible. This successfully made everything look like a panel from a comic strip, and it really evokes that look when you watch the picture. The makeup effects were just excellent for their time, bringing Prune Face and Flat Top, among other Tracy rogues, to life. The soundtrack is pretty good, weaving together cinematic music with jazzy numbers and a few Stephen Sondheim songs sung by Madonna. The look of the city and the crooks are straight out of the Dick Tracy comic strip. There's even a great Tommy gun shootout in the last act. What's not to love? But despite everything the movie had going for it, Dick Tracy kind of fizzled. And as one critic at the time put it, the movie gave you nothing to take home and dream on. The main problem here was how Warren Beatty played Tracy. His performance is strangely flat. Too flat even for a comic strip character, ironically. And that was a deal breaker for a lot of people. But the one thing this movie simply could not overcome was the inevitable comparison to another big blockbuster that had come out just the year before, 1989's Batman. This is one of a series of movies that came out in the early 90s that had retro appeal. We've talked about that before in my holy trinity of 90s movies that were fun but flopped anyway. See, studio executives saw how successful Batman was and wrongly guessed that the success was down to the retro 1930s aesthetic and comic book origin of Batman. That's what gave us movies like The Phantom, The Rocketeer, The Shadow, and Dick Tracy. None of which really connected with audiences the way Batman did. And any planned sequels to those movies were quickly scrapped, which is a real shame because I, for one, loved all that retro stuff. But in the case of this movie, it went even a step further. Both Batman and Dick Tracy had a lot in common. Too much in common for some critics and viewers. Both are based on comics. Both are set in a fictional, retro-looking cityscape. Both feature a retro wardrobe. Both have a lone agent of justice battling a weird, freaky-looking crook and his gang. Both have the hero flirting with a sexy blonde chick. Both sport some A-listers in the cast, plus several fine character actors in supporting roles. Danny Elfman did the soundtrack for both movies, so the music for Dick Tracy does have a Batmanish sound to it. And both movies had a maximum saturation advertising campaign behind them. Toys, record albums, clothing, Happy Meals, posters, model kits, t-shirts, video games. You name it, it was available for sale. So everything about Dick Tracy felt like a rehash of Batman, even though Dick Tracy was bright and colorful instead of grim and dark. The whole thing just felt like a Batman cash-in, like Dick Tracy was riding Batman's cape tails. All this despite being its own movie, which is ironic in that Dick Tracy and his rogues gallery were one of the original inspirations for the Batman character in the first place. When compared to Batman, Dick Tracy came up short. The movie wasn't exactly a flop. It made its money back and then some, plus all the merchandising must have brought in some extra cash. It got several awards for the phenomenal makeup effects, but the movie is still considered by many to be a flop, if they even remember it at all. It really was an achievement in several ways, but the movie just couldn't overcome its own relatively few flaws, or the comparisons to the more famous Batman. I'm giving this one 3 paws. Dick Tracy is big and fun and colorful, and thoroughly respects its source material. It feels like a comic strip come to life in a way you rarely ever see. True, some things don't work, but Dick Tracy has a bright zest to it that is still welcome in 2022. It's a forgotten failure that wasn't really a failure. It's a love letter to a comic strip crime fighter of days gone by, and there was real love in the mix when they made Dick Tracy. Something glaringly absent in remakes and adaptations today. You take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.